Thank you for listening to the Pearls and Swine podcast. I seek to bring hope and healing to those suffering under toxic leadership in the home or in the workplace. If you find my podcast helpful, please comment on it or rate it. Now enjoy this installment on the Pearls and Swine podcast. What makes a leader good is not that he simply rejects prevailing political approaches, speaks his mind, displays power, or brings wealth and fortune to an organization. Though many of us would never base our standards on such things, deep down, we probably hold one or more of these standards as self-evident. Some are very attracted to the rebellious. Those who reject conventional engagement and call it like it is, or maybe the man or woman who expresses particular strength of will. However, what is fundamental to good leadership is someone who has skills, humility, and cares for the needs of others, particularly the vulnerable. That is biblical leadership. An example of leadership development and selection can be found in the first 3 chapters of Exodus. There we see the story of how Moses is born, miraculously saved, grows in convictions, and is chosen by the Lord to stand up against oppressive leadership. The story begins by introducing Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. Pharaoh is oppressing the Israelites who had been welcomed into Egypt 400 years earlier. They had moved in those 400 years from being given lavish treatment due to Joseph's wisdom and service to the Pharaoh at that time to becoming slaves to the Egyptians. They were treated horribly, and at one point Pharaoh orders that male babies be killed by the Hebrew or the Israelite midwives. Moses was born to an Israelite and hidden. He then was miraculously saved by Pharaoh's daughter, who took him into her family, though asking Moses' mother, not knowing she was his mother, to nurse the child. Moses grew up as part of the establishment, yet it seems that the Lord had kept him responsive to the needs of those who were oppressed. As he went out one day, he saw an Egyptian treating Israelite slave horribly. Moses stepped in and killed the Egyptian. Though I believe this should be classified as murder, we don't know exactly what was happening and if it was a justified killing. We do see a man, Moses, who has conviction to care for the oppressed. Because of his fear of punishment, Pharaoh had heard and wanted to kill Moses. Moses runs away to Midian. And once again, Moses' care for the oppressed shines as he saves some shepherdesses from some shepherds who were driving them away from their water source. Moses continually cares for those suffering under those with the power to crush others. Time passes. Moses marries in Midian, and Pharaoh dies, and the people of Israel cry out to the Lord because of the mistreatment they are facing at the hands of their slave masters. The Lord now calls Moses out of his relative comfort in Midian to lead a revolt of sorts in Egypt. Moses has been prepared for this. He has proven that he stands by his convictions to care for those under oppression. And Moses becomes one of the most important prophets in Israel, being referred to constantly throughout the Bible as one of the most important men in Israel's history. The Lord sends Moses to this new Pharaoh to request the release of God's people, Israel. Moses' response is typical of a humble leader, one who knows his own abilities are not really adequate. Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the children of Israel out of Egypt? The Lord answers that he will be with Moses. There are many lessons in Exodus 1 through 3, but I want to simply point out that leaders should be chosen out of humility, and yet we must remember that they can still become drunk with power, as Moses did on one occasion, where he struck the rock in Numbers 20. which is a whole nother story. But the starting place is humility and care. Has the person shown a real care for others, a real interest in their well-being? Is he or she giving and gracious? Then does he or she have the skills to do the job? In a sense, I suggest this comes last. Skills can be developed. Humility and care are attitudes that have been developing probably since childhood as the Lord has sanctified. And being placed in leadership does nothing to help humility and care when those deep-seated attitudes are not already present. Some people seem to be made for leadership as they take the reins of control naturally and easily. However, if they lack humility and care for those under their power, pass them by and keep looking. Thanks for listening today. My name is Kelly Dainert, and I write and produce these podcasts. The music you just heard is called Finally, a song I wrote, and it was performed by Mingoli, an African ensemble from Malawi, of which I directed. Please rate my podcast if you found it helpful. It will help get the word out to others. Have a great day.